In at number 5 is Ride the Lightning. I think a lot of people would put this higher on their list. I do understand that this has a lot of amazing classic Metallica songs, and it just flows really well. I think it gets in and gets out with lightning speed and doesn't really have a whole lot of excess to trim. It's just in and out, in your face the entire time. And for me, out of their first 3 albums, this isn't the one I go back to the most. It's a great album. I may have overplayed it when I first got into the band back in the day. I know I was pretty obsessed with Fade to Black for quite a while. And when you see Metallica live, I think one of the greatest, craziest part of their set is when you hear the entire audience, like 20,000 people all chanting "Die" at the same time. It's just a crazy moment to see live. I mean, the highlights of this album for me are the opening track, Fight Fire with Fire, Trapped Under Ice, as well as Escape. I mean, pretty much the entire album. But I do really like the title track as well. I feel like that gets overlooked a bit. Surprisingly, though, my least favorite song on this album is For Whom the Bell Tolls, and I know that's kind of sacrilege. It's one of the most liked, the most fan-favorited song in their catalog. But for me, it's just, I don't know if it's overplayed or if I just don't really like that song. Either way, it's part of what dragged this album down in the list a little bit for me. So, Ride the Lightning coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the debut, The Almighty Kill 'Em All. This album is so raw, so amazing, so aggressive that you can see why Metallica oftentimes gets credited with inventing thrash, which is incorrect, of course, but they certainly pushed it forward and maybe perfected it. At the very least, they innovated and pushed the genre forward. And a lot of that was born on this album. Fans still absolutely loving songs that you wrote when you were 19, in your early 20s, late teens. That's just nuts. 40 years ago, and this album holds up with the best of the genre to this day. If not, beats them over the head with a club. Songs like Four Horsemen, No Remorse, Whiplash, Phantom Lord, the entire album, Hit the Light, Motor Breath, Jump in the Fire, Metal Militia, the amazing Cliff Burton bass solo song, Pulling Teeth Anesthesia. This album I come back to all the time. Coming in at number 3, an album that I think most people would put at number 1. And I can't disagree with that. I totally understand. This is the penultimate genre-defining thrash metal album as far as a lot of people are concerned. And of course, I believe that to be true as well. It's just that, this is a personal rating, and I had to look at how many songs off each album or how many times I listened to each album in certain spans of time. Like, which ones do I go back to the most often? And this one was beat out by the last 2. So that, I think, also might be because I overplayed this album when I was a bit younger. This album just flows so well from start to finish. It has one of the best openings of a metal album that I've ever heard. The acoustic intro to Battery that just fades in and builds and then out of nowhere just punches you in the face with that opening riff that's lightning fast. It's the song on this album that I think of the most when I think thrash. My favorite song on the album is Disposable Heroes, followed by Leper Messiah. I really love both of those songs. The riff in Leper Messiah it's underrated. It doesn't get as much respect as I think it should. There's a lot of ridiculously fast and also ridiculously catchy guitar riffs in Disposable Heroes. That's Master of Puppets, number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list, the Black Album. This album I do go back to more often than pretty much any of the other albums. I mean, obviously, but I go back to this album so much. There's just a lot of songs that I identify with. They do tend to be the songs on the album that don't get played as often, or didn't get played as often on the radio or TV back when I used to watch TV or listen to the radio. But there are still great songs that didn't get as much play. Don't Tread on Me, The Struggle Within is my favorite song on the album. My Friend Misery. Those songs don't get as much play, and they're amazing. They're my favorites on the album. Also, this album was like a landmark album as far as production was concerned in heavy metal. This album is gigantic. The drum sound, everything on this album is like perfectly produced to get that signature Black Album sound. And when you hear that sound, you know that it's Black Album. So that's the Black Album, number 2 on my list. Here it is, number 1 on my list, and Justice for All. This album is their most aggressive, their most progressive, and their most insane album to date. This album was such a crazy album for them to write that they literally changed their entire sound afterward. Sure, the bass is super turned down, yada yada yada, and that, sucks for Jason Newsted, but it doesn't hurt the album any. This is an amazing album. Every song on this is a song that I'm stoked to hear when it comes on, and I go back to this album probably once every couple months and listen to the whole thing. There's not a song on here that I skip. It's all gold. My favorite tracks are Harvester of Sorrow and Dyer's Eve on this one. Of course, the title track is really great as well. The drum part on the title track is something I used to play as kind of a warm-up when I was sitting behind the kit. This album just can't be beat. The guitar harmonies, the guitar parts in general, the guitar sound. This album is just, it's lean and mean and aggressive, and it doesn't let up. Even during one, which is, kind of the ballad of the track, there's that ridiculously heavy part that everybody absolutely loves, and it's the reason why they'll forever play that song in every set. It's just, every song is crazy heavy, and everything about the album is exaggerated to the umpteenth degree. And that just excessive amount of everything is exactly why this album lands at number 1 on my list. So that's my Metallica studio album ranking. Let me know if you disagree with any of my rankings, and post your ranking down in the comments, or give me a link to a video that you make or have already made for ranking Metallica albums, and I'll be sure to check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.